How do you know how much life insurance you need? Is it $500,000? Is it $1 million? Is it $5 million? Does this number come from? Do we just pick it out of thin air? That is what we are going to be discussing today. How to determine, or how we determine, your life insurance needs. Hi there, my name is Dotun Afuda, your favorite independent insurance advisor based here in Ontario, Canada. And I'm happy to have you here today. I know you have been getting a lot of value from my content. So why don't you like, subscribe, and share to everybody in your network, because here you will find wonderful information that would help you thrive in Canada. So let's get into it. How do we determine your insurance needs? So I'm going to use an example here. So this is how we go through the insurance needs process of determining how much insurance you need. So I'm going to say, John, let's say this person is John Jack, right? John Jack. So how do we determine how much life insurance John Jack needs? So the first thing we look at is the debts, right? Does John Jack have any debts? Let's say, for example, John Jack has $4,000 in credit card debt, and he took a line of credit of $8,000 that he's still paying off, and he has a car loan of $20,000 that he's still paying off, and he also took a student loan. So let's say he has a student loan of about $18,000 left, and that is basically all the loans he has, right? So this comes to a total of $50,000. Now, for funeral expenses, we always estimate $50,000. At least right now, I estimate $50,000 for funeral expenses. And the reason is based on the cost of funeral expenses right now and factoring in inflation for future costs of funeral expenses. So I will estimate 50,000. Now, understand that funeral expense is a permanent insurance need. The reason why funeral expense is a permanent insurance need is because it doesn't matter how long a person lives for. Even if a person lives till age 200, right? Somebody still needs to pay for their cost of funeral. So it's a permanent insurance need. Now, the next thing we will come to is income replacement. What is income replacement? Income replacement is basically based on, right now, your family, your beneficiaries are dependent on your income. If anything happens to you, how long do you want them to have access to the same income so that they can maintain their lifestyle and have time to readjust their lifestyle? That is what income replacement is based on, and it's usually the bulk part of your insurance need. The calculation for income replacement is usually minimum 10 years, right? So minimum 10 years, especially if you are age 55 and below. But ideally, you should be replacing your income until your youngest child is an adult. So if we say your youngest child would be dependent on you until after graduating from university, so ideally you should be replacing your income until your youngest child is at least 25 years old. So if your youngest child were to be 5, that means you are replacing your income for 20 years. So let's say for this example, John Jack's income is $60,000. Right? And John Jack's youngest child is 5 years old. So we're replacing John Jack's income for 20 years. So for income replacement, John Jack needs about 1.2 million. So the next thing we go to is mortgage. Let's assume John Jack has a mortgage of $550,000 that is still paying off. So that will also be added to the insurance need, because if anything happens to John Jack, ideally, his family should be able to pay off the cost of their shelter, so that lessens the burden on the family income. Now, the next thing is education and childcare fund. Now, by CRA estimate, for a 4-year post-secondary education course that a child is attending in the same city where they live in, they would need about $48,000 for tuition and living expenses. So let's assume John Jack has 2 children, right? I usually like to round it up to $50,000. So let's say John Jack has 2 kids. That would be $50,000 times 2. That would be $100,000 in post-secondary education fund needed. Now, child care fund, if you are paying for
before school and after school childcare, or you want to plan for if anything happens to you, now your family would have to pay for before school and after school care, or if you're still paying for daycare, this is where we have that calculation in. So let's say for example purposes, for childcare fund, we just estimate that John Jack would need about $30,000, right? So now this brings John Jack's total insurance need, as you can see, to $1,980,000. $1,980,000. But it's important to mention this. Most of these insurance needs, so income replacement, mortgage, education fund needed, even all the debts, right? They are considered temporary insurance needs. The reason is because maximum, if John Jack lives for 25 to 30 years, he would have paid off all this while he's still alive. So a term insurance, a well-structured term insurance, can cover for all this risk for John Jack. John Jack doesn't need permanent life insurance to cover for all this. The only permanent insurance need here is funeral expenses plus any inheritance, right, that John Jack feels he would like to leave to his two children. So for example, if John Jack says, you know what, at any point where I pass away, whether I'm age 100, I want to make sure each of my kids can get $250,000. So that means John Jack's permanent insurance need would then bump up to $550,000. Other than that, John Jack does not need so much permanent life insurance. Now, if John Jack already has insurance, let's say John Jack has one coverage that he did some years ago when he was still young, and that coverage is for $350,000, right? So we put it here and we factor that in. So we know that John Jack has a deficit of $1,630,000. And now our focus in getting John Jack an insurance policy that meets his need will be getting him something that at least meets $1,630,000. And most of it is going to be term insurance. So John Jack is not paying for too much insurance per time. So that is basically how we calculate insurance needs, right?
So I hope this video has helped you to understand what it looks like to calculate your insurance needs. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. As always, I'll be happy to answer your questions. And if you have any questions about your own insurance policy, do not hesitate to reach out to me. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and bye-bye.